Yes. The question is that this bill be now read a second time. Call the Minister.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. This bill will give effect to two important initiatives that address mental health challenges for veterans and members of the ADF and their families. Tackling mental health challenges for veterans, members and their families is a key pillar of the government's plan for veteran affairs. For the last election, unlike those opposite, we released a sound, detailed, considered policy for veterans and their families, built around four pillars. Firstly, recognising the unique nature of military service. Secondly, maintaining a standalone Department of Veteran Affairs. Thirdly, tackling the mental health challenges of veterans and their families. And fourthly, supporting veterans through adequate advocacy and welfare services. As the Minister for Veteran Affairs has said, the government's decisions and actions will be underpinned by the unique nature of military service. It's a theme that's come through very strongly from those on our side speaking, and I certainly acknowledge the member for Herbert for his outstanding contribution, his very personal and heartfelt words as he is concerned about the serving men and women and veterans in his electorate. It's for that reason that, in addition to measures to improve mental health being funded in the budget and enabled by the legislation, the government has also exempted gold and white treatment card holders from the $7 co-payment to see a GP, reimbursed veterans who are eligible for Veterans Pharmaceutical Benefit Scheme any additional out-of-pocket expenses arising from the increase to the pharmaceutical co-payment, restoring advocacy and welfare funding that was cut by those opposite, increasing by $4 million over the forward estimate funding for the Building Excellence in Support and Training, or the BEST program, and delivered our commitment to index DFRB and DFRDB military superannuants by CPI, PBLCI Matawi from 1 July 2014 for superannuants aged 55 and over. Unlike what's being suggested by those opposite, the government is not cutting pensions nor taking away entitlements in the budget. This legislation is proof positive of the government's commitment to veterans' mental health and to further strengthening our world-leading repatriation system. Each year, DVA spends more than $166 million on dedicated mental health programs for veterans and their families. This is part of the government's $12.3 billion commitment to veterans, which includes more than $6 billion on income support and compensation pensions and more than $5 billion on health care. The mental health needs of veterans and their families are at the forefront of the government's commitment to the veteran community, providing greater support to the veteran and veterans' family counselling service for ex-serving members and their families, enhanced treatment paths for diagnosed post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety and depression without having to establish that their condition is related to their service, access to treatment for diagnosed alcohol and substance abuse disorders, and availability to a new physical and mental health assessment for ex-service members to be delivered through Medicare. These initiatives build on our commitment to the mental health of our veterans at the 2013 election and the establishment of the Prime Minister's Advisory Council on Veterans' Mental Health announced earlier this year, and I'll elaborate further on each of these important measures. Mental health services for veterans and members will be strengthened through greater access to non-liability health care and to the Veterans and Veterans Families Counselling Service, the VVCS. Through these arrangements, the government pays for mental health treatment for eligible veterans and members without the need to establish that their mental health condition is related to their service. This means they'll be able to receive treatment for these conditions even though the treatment is not service-related. Currently, these arrangements include treatment for diagnosed post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety and depression. From 1 July 2014, eligible veterans and members of the Australian Defence Force with diagnosed conditions of alcohol use disorder or substance use disorder will have access to treatment for these conditions through non-liability healthcare arrangements. Also from 1 July this year, non-liability healthcare arrangements will be extended to members with at least 3 years continuous full-time peacetime service that finishes on or after the 7th of April 1994. The second mental health initiative in this bill will expand the client groups eligible for counselling through the VVCS. From 1 July this year, current and former serving members with certain peacetime service and their families will be eligible for such counselling. This includes Border Protection Service, service in a disaster zone, either in Australia or overseas, service as a submariner, and personnel involved in training accidents and members medically discharged. Access to counselling services from the VVCS will also be extended to partners and their dependent children up to the age of 26, Of these, newly eligible groups into the partners, dependent children aged up to 26 and parents of members killed in service-related incidences. These measures will assist these groups and former serving members to seek treatment and service earlier, which has the potential to prevent or minimise the negative impacts of mental health conditions. Another significant measure in the bill will enhance the operations of the Veterans Review Board, or the VRB. The bill introduces a legislative framework for alternate dispute resolution processes, including conferencing and mediation, which of course avoids the need for a costly hearing. Additional improvements relating to case management and the administrative and procedural practices of the board are expected to enable more effective management of the functions of the board. These changes are designed to give the board more modern and efficient processes. Alternative dispute resolution processes encourage early identification and clarification of issues and the gathering and consideration of necessary evidence aimed at resolving the appeal at the earliest possible stage. Where a matter goes to a hearing, the same informal and non-legalistic approach to hearings will continue, appreciated by many, can I say, in the veteran community. There is broad support among the ex-service organisations for these reforms. Amendments in the bill to the Rehabilitation or Military Rehabilitation and Compensation Act will expand the circumstances under which an eligible young person is taken to be wholly dependent on a member. The expansion will cover an eligible young person for whom the member is liable to pay child support. This will mean that an eligible young person who lives with a member and an eligible young member for whom the member is liable to pay child support will have the same wholly dependent status under the Military Rehabilitation and Compensation Act. I'd point out that these situations are not exhaustive, and other eligible young persons may be determined to be wholly dependent on a member on a case-by-case basis and reflects the government's care for children of veterans. The bill will also act on the advice of the Department of Defence and change the end date for a period of service in an operational area in Schedule 2 of the VEA, the Veterans Entitlement Act. These changes will not affect the entitlements of veterans. Further amendments to the MRCA will enable the Chief Executive of Comcare to be nominated for appointment to the Military Rehabilitation and Compensation Commission. This measure rectifies the inadvertent disqualification in 2012 of the Chief Executive of Comcare from nomination for appointment to the Military Rehabilitation and Compensation Commission. The amendments reinstate the original intention of the MRCA so that the Military Rehabilitation and Compensation Commission may benefit from the expertise of a member with whole-of-government knowledge on workers' compensation issues. Amendments relating to the Commonwealth Seniors Health Card and Senior Supplement will reduce the administration burden on clients who travel overseas for more than 6 weeks. Currently, one of the eligibility requirements for Commonwealth Seniors Health Card is that the person must be in Australia or temporarily overseas for less than 6 weeks. If that person temporarily travels overseas for more than 6 weeks, the person must reapply for the Commonwealth Seniors Health Card on their return to Australia in order for payment of senior supplements to recommence. This requires a written claim and a proof of the person's income details. The amendment will mean that cardholders will not lose eligibility for the Commonwealth Seniors Health Card if they travel overseas temporarily for more than 6 weeks. However, eligibility for senior supplement will still cease, as a new eligibility provision will be introduced for the senior supplement requiring the person to be in Australia or temporarily overseas for less than 6 weeks. On return to Australia, the person will simply need to notify the department of their return with no need to lodge a new claim. This government is committed to reducing red tape, and this measure will help older Australians to access benefits from the Australian government. The measures in the bill will benefit veterans, members of our Defence Force and the families of our military personnel. The bill achieves this by giving effect to additional treatments and services for mental health conditions and for support for mental well-being. It will also improve the operations of the Veterans Review Board by legislating a framework for proven alternative dispute resolution processes and provide easier access to the Commonwealth Seniors Health Card for cardholders who travel overseas for more than 6 weeks. Mr Deputy Speaker, I commend the bill to the House.
Order. The question is that the bill be now read a second time. I put the question that this bill be read a second time. Those in favour? Aye. Against? I think the ayes have it. Clerk.
Second reading. A bill for an act to amend the law relating to Veterans Affairs and military rehabilitation and compensation and for related purposes.
I have received a message from His Excellency the Governor-General recommending, in accordance with Section 56 of the Constitution, an appropriation for the purposes of this bill. Is leave granted for the third reading to be moved immediately?
Leave granted.
Leave is granted. Minister.
I move that this bill now be read a third time.
The question is that this bill be now read a third time. I put the question. Those in favour? Those against? The ayes